Hello, welcome back to another episode of Conversations on Creativity and Life. I'm your host, Rochelle Dion, and this week I'm joined by Endrené Shepherd. We cover a lot of ground this episode, but one of the more profound subjects is the isolation of being a caregiver.
Take two. I'm such a huge fan of yours, and I can't wait to talk about all of your work and what inspires it. But why don't you tell me a little bit about did you always feel like an artist from childhood? And I know that art runs in your family, but what really inspired you to begin and create your whole life around art?
Um, for me, I always knew, like right from the time I was tiny. I think my mom had one of those things you fill in that's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she asked me when I was 4, and I said, well, I'm an artist, and I already am one. Like,
Oh
I
wow.
I knew. So yeah, it's something that I've had lots of jobs, but I've always made art. Like I've always I have to make
Mhm.
art.
That's beautifully stated, actually. And I'm curious, as you know, I'm studying to be a therapist, and so I'm always weaving mental health conversations into everything I do. Have there ever been any periods of time in your life where you've been a little bit blocked, and did that impact your mental health? Or
Absolutely. It kind of goes hand in hand, I think. It's almost like if I'm in any kind of denial about my state of mental health, um, I'll notice first. Sometimes I'll notice first that I haven't made any art. I'm not interested in it, and that's always a sign to me that I need to make a change. Or some, and in the on the other side of the card, there's been times where um, making art has been exactly what I needed to get me through something, or to help me to externalize something, so that I can look at it with some levity or clarity, just sort of taking it out of myself and getting a little distance. Art has really helped me a lot with that.
yeah, I believe it. And I mean, in my personal opinion, that's where a lot of the best art comes from. And one thing that comes to mind when you talk about that is your comics, which I adore. Do you find that you dive into them when you're feeling the most raw? Is that why I'm experiencing them that way? Or what would you say
Yeah.
about?
I Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. I mean, the comics have always been a way for me to tell stories and express myself. And I started looking back, I really started doing comics even in elementary school. Like it was all the kids were into the Archie comics.
Mhm.
So that's where I think I got a lot of exposure to comics. But of course, growing up with newspapers, you were always waiting for the Sunday funnies. Calvin and Hobbes was still going, a syndicated cartoon when I was young. So I saw a lot of comics, and I used it as a way to connect with people and to tell stories, and try and express myself as a young person. But I never really took them seriously. I didn't really take it seriously as an art form. I think a part of that was just because it was something that was easy for me, that I could do quickly, to tell like a little story. I didn't um, think of it as art with a capital A.
Yeah.
And then during the pandemic, I moved in to live with my grandmother in October of 2019 to become her full-time caregiver, with my partner and our son at the time, who was 4 years old, I believe. So we made this really odd little family of four, my partner, my son, and my grandma. And I I had no idea what I was getting into when I took on the caregiving. And um, the isolation of it was really compounded by the pandemic. Um, but caregivers experience that sort of pandemic level isolation on a daily basis. And I had no idea. I had no idea. And so for me to be able to yeah, like I say, externalize, give some levity. I started to make these comics about my daily interactions with my grandma, and just sort of record some of the things I learned about dementia and caregiving, and yeah, just express some of the really huge feelings I was having about looking after someone who had changed so much because of dementia. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we talk about that enough, to be honest with you. I shared with you in an email that my mom became quite mentally ill when I was young. And I feel that the people who understand it the most are those who go through dementia with a loved one, because that loved one is still alive,
Mm,
right? They still look very similar to how they used to look. They embody the same body. They look, their physical presence is the same, their voice is the same, but their personality is suddenly completely different. And
mhm.
so they talk about that anticipatory grief, or that, that you're losing this person steadily over time, which is its own real loss. And I can't remember, is your grandmother still with us?
She is. She had her 96th birthday just last month. Yeah. Yeah, she's continued to decline though. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I actually recently made a comic about why we ended up leaving the situation, and it's one I haven't published or shared yet, and I will. But um there's I realized, and I write it in the comic, that I had been avoiding going to see her because, partly because I still feel so guilty about leaving. There's a lot of grief in feeling like I gave up, and I didn't. I gave it all I had, and my partner was really supportive, but it really was just too hard for us to continue, and so it's hard to go and visit her and see her, and know that she doesn't even remember that we lived with her at all, and I just have to be okay with that, and I remember, and I know I did a good job, and my son got a chance to know his great grandma, which not everybody does. So there's a lot to be grateful for, but it's ongoing, and it's still, yeah, there's still a lot of feelings that I have to make comics about. Yeah.
Beautifully stated. I think, again, those are all those feelings really resonate with me on a deep level. My mom unfortunately is no longer with us, but I always look back and think, we should have done more. There's more I could have done. I was also a kid at the time, which isn't always that easy, right? You're not the grown up. You don't know really what to do or who to turn to. And in your case, you guys all it was a process of trying to keep your grandmother in her home, right? That was a part of so it was kind of like in home care, so that she didn't have to go to potentially a level 4 or whatever, a dementia ward, right off the bat. So there's so much to be grateful for in that too. I'm sure she really appreciated staying home. But the other part I wanted to mention is, your son was 4 at the time. Like, that's enough. You're already doing a lot of caretaking. There's so much going on, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was a complicated time with, like, a lot of, I'm really grateful to have had my son there, because I think he added so much more lightness to the situation, and because he's an only child, he treated his great grandma like a sibling a lot of times, and she couldn't run away from him, so he'd just corner her and make her watch him play with his transformers. So it was nice, I think, for both of them.
That's beautiful. Like the beauty that comes out of these unexpected kind of circumstances. Getting back to the comics a little bit, I just wanted to share that you did a beautiful one for me. I'll probably superimpose it on after, because it doesn't always show up that well, but I'll try to show it here. So I had written, can you see that okay?
I can, yeah.
Yeah. Oh
It
my
looks
God.
great.
Yeah, I love it so much. I commissioned you to do that comic, and you've never met the kids, which is one thing. And you asked for some photos from different angles, and you captured them so well, Endrené. Like, you are so talented. I have no idea how you did that. And even just the way that you worked the dog in and her mischievous behavior. And, it was so perfect. And I'm so curious about, commissions. Is it, because I know that you do a lot of it.
Mhm.
Does that take away from how you create? Does it put pressure on you? Tell me about that process.
It's thinking about commissions is always a little tricky. I think my most successful commissions have always been for people who know and like my art already.
Yeah.
And I'm able to sort of get a sense of the person and what they're looking for. And it's actually, I don't feel like it takes away from the rest of my artistic process, because it's really, I'm trying to think of a word to describe it, but it's joyous, like to be able to kind of tease out what a person wants to see but can't make for themselves, and then help them manifest, like to manifest. It's one thing to manifest something from my own head, to like make a painting, but to try and get it from someone else's head and create something it's a really fun challenge. Yeah, I think because it is more of a challenge, it does take a greater amount of my personal capacity, so I have to just be aware of that and not take on too many at one time. Like I think usually I don't like to work on more than 2 commissions at any given time. Having 2 is nice, because then I can sort of switch back and forth, but more than that and I start to get overwhelmed. So yeah, I do have to, working on my understanding of the finitude of my own life and my own personal capacity, instead of just saying yes to everything, is something that's fairly new to me. So I think that's why I'm talking about it now. I think it's important that we all start with, instead of starting with the to-do list, we start with, oh, how much time do I actually have? How much emotional capacity do I actually have? What do I actually need to do? And then go, oh, I actually only have this much time, not that much time. So the to-do list has to shrink to meet that. So it's a radical way to change my thinking, and maybe get more done and better quality work too, because I'll be working at a capacity that's comfortable instead of overwhelming.
That was so beautifully said. And there's so many great things to touch on there, but I wanted to mention that piece around taking on too much and overwhelm, because as artists and creative people in general, we often have that feast or famine mentality, right? We think, okay, well, I better say yes, because I don't know if there's going to be a paycheck tomorrow. I don't know if there's going to be groceries tomorrow. So we have a tendency to hoard it all and then get partway through the process and go, oh my gosh, what have I done? I could stay awake, 24/7 for the next however long and still not get it done. What was I thinking? So that's another skill set to have, in addition to the artwork, right? That whole business management side and personal management side. Do you find it difficult? How do you, because I have a friend who's certainly a more of a learning artist and a beginning artist, and she's accepting some of her first commissions, but they're stressing her right out. And I think part of that is, as you say, that idea of trying to manifest something is someone else's vision as opposed to your own vision. And also, I think it's hard for people to put a price on themselves or put a price on their work. So, did it take you time to develop those skills? What was that process like for you?
It's ongoing. Like I really, because I'm such an artist, the whole business side, marketing myself, managing my time and my output is really icky. Like it's not something I'm like, oh, I can't wait to work on my marketing plan today. Like I just really find myself avoiding those activities. So it's ongoing. It takes time, and I think the biggest thing I learned in terms of like the value of my time was I have to set a price. If I'm doing a commission, I set the price beforehand. What I do is I usually go, oh, I think it'll take me a week. And then over the last 40 years, I've realized that anything that I think will take me a week always takes me 3. So, so I charge for the 3 weeks, and then I'm not. There has been times where I haven't charged enough, and then I charge for a week, and then I'm, halfway through week 2.5, and I start to feel really resentful, and I don't want that energy going into the artwork. So I think knowing what you're worth and then asking for that gives you the little more comfort. But even recently, I underestimated the amount of time. And I remember saying to Dave, like, I'm only getting paid $500 to do this. And I feel like I've done $500 worth of work. And he said, no, you can't do it like that. You have to do it to the best of your ability, regardless of what you're getting paid. And that really changed everything for me, because I'm like, that's true. Because if I only do that $500 worth of work, every time I see that painting from that point on, I'm going to go, oh, I wish I'd spent that extra time just making it look like a $2,000 piece of artwork, and it didn't take that much extra time for me to get it there. But I'm so glad I took that extra time and took Dave's advice, just to really take it all the way to where I could take it, instead of like, oh, you're almost there, that's good enough.
Just the whole idea of two artists supporting themselves, supporting one another, creating and walking through life in that beautiful creative way. Tell me how that has changed for you now that you're a parent, and what have either of you kind of put that pressure on the other person, like, you better go out and get a different job, or how have you kept the creativity alive while parenting and running a home?
Ooh, that has definitely been a challenge. And I think like I was saying about sort of assessing capacity, it's been like a ongoing thing in the house too, sort of as our child has aged and taken up more space in the home. And I started actually a job not too long ago in February. It was meant to be admin on my spare time, and I hadn't really figured out, that I don't actually have a lot of spare time. And then also just realizing that I'm not really cut out for working from home. I'm not comfortable. I see all the things around me that I should be doing, the dishes, the laundry, and the fridge is full of food that I could, go and snack on at any moment. So, yeah, I mean, and I took that job because I felt some pressure, like, I've got to make some money. The commissions kind of died off after Christmas time, and we had some more expenses. So I thought, I better get a job, and I've never had a problem doing that before. But yeah, it's an ongoing balance. Like, I really saw this admin job was eating up all of my time. And I don't think I knew it until I went away at the beginning of April for a residency for women who make comics. And I spent one whole week just looking after myself and making artwork. And I don't know that I've ever done that. Maybe in university, that's kind of how my life was. But being able to step away from my family and my responsibilities and take that time, and then come home and go, oh my God, this is actually too much, and it's not sustainable. So I spoke with my boss, and I planned on quitting the job entirely, but we negotiated, and now I'm only doing the parts of the job that I want to do and I have time for. So there's like that ongoing. I do have a studio right now because I can't work from home. But I haven't spent enough time there, and I've noticed that recently. So there's something I want to do more of. Yeah, it's an ongoing juggling act. I think I've finally realized that I'm not ever going to, go up a hill and I'm going to be there and I'm going to make it. There's always going to be stuff I have to juggle. There's always going to be complications, and it's never going to be perfect. So I just have to keep making art.
This is this is all really resonating with me very profoundly, because I think that we do have that concept, don't we? When we're in our 20s, we're like, I'm going to get there and then I'll have it figured out. There'll be, work balance, life balance, art balance, creativity balance, and I'll live in a mansion and it'll be great, and you have these ideas that it will be simple to juggle those things, but it's not at all. And there is whatever you find that works for you one day, a few months, a few years down the road doesn't work anymore. And then you think, well, now what? Now what do I do? And I think many moms especially can certainly relate to the things that you're saying. I haven't been blessed with my own children, but I can only imagine, I have this luxury and this beauty of being like a part-time parent. And it's so wonderful because I can pour everything I have into the kids when they're here, and then they go back to their mom's house. And so we have this lovely thing, but I recognize what a privilege that is, because I can barely take care of myself, truth be told, right? So that's plenty, just keeping my husband and I alive. So then, I love and appreciate that we have that special time together, but I also appreciate that when they're not with me, that I don't have to feel guilty about putting myself first, or putting my husband and I first, or trying to, get the house back in some kind of order, or what have you, so there's so many things to juggle. And I know many writers, especially because I guess it's a quieter art form, and maybe many of the work that you do is, quieter than practicing music. I mean, I know many writers who either they're waking up at 4 a.m. to get some writing done before the kids wake up, or they stay up way later than they should to get that hour or two of writing in after the kids go to bed. And so they, the sleep gets shorter and shorter and shorter, as if parents don't, have enough sleep to begin with.
Yeah.
How have you fit your art around that, around parenting, around other responsibilities?
Well, I mean, I was lucky. I did have a long stretch where I was I don't know if I want to call it lucky, but I was pre-menopausal. Sweats were waking me up at 4:30, 5 o'clock every morning. So I was lucky that I could be an early bird for a while. But yeah, it really is just finding the time, and then sort of building art into my life as much as I can. Something I do that I didn't even realize was a special thing is my comics are drawn to scale, which means I didn't realize this, but a lot of comics artists will draw everything a little bit larger, and then it's shrunk down so you can get all those details sort of crammed into your smaller digest size. And I draw it that digest size for one reason, which is the digest size of a sketchbook fits into my purse, and I can take it with me anywhere. And that way, if I do have, like, I'm waiting in line somewhere, I'm waiting in a restaurant, or not that happens much these days, but it just gives me one less excuse, to avoid drawing. It's like, well, I've got it right here with me. Like I can do that. But the bigger projects, like things like painting, they really do take deep work time, and they need space. And so that has been like a struggle over the years, just finding. A lot of times it just happened at the kitchen table, and I'd have to be either okay with having a mess for a while, or I'd have to be okay with packing it up and coming back at it in a week or so, which can really disrupt the creative flow. So I'm really blessed right now that I do have a studio with a door and with windows, and that is like a first. That was September 2023. So no, it's not. Sorry, September 2022. I'm talking into the future. But it took me 44 years to get the studio of my dreams, and I've got it, and I've got the space now. And now again, it's going, oh, but I still need the time. Having the space doesn't guarantee the time. So just finding I need at least 2 hours to paint. So a lot of times it's when my kid is at school, or I'll ask Dave to hang out with Zen so that I can have time to paint after school. We're pretty good at making it work. I have to remember to take that time and not just wait for someone to offer it to me.
Yeah, that can be a really big challenge. Your partnership sounds very healthy and very, communicative and very understanding. Um, my husband and I are really good at putting each other first, which is lovely. But then we're both really bad at putting ourselves first. And so sometimes we have to say to each other, okay, what do you need from me this week? How can I help? And the other person has to say, I need you to put yourself first. Like, we have to have those conversations, which feels ridiculous, but we're both built that way. And I guess that's lucky, because if we keep putting each other first, at least we're coming first some of the time. But it's kind of by accident, so we have to be a lot more um, intentional, I guess, about it. We have to be really think about it and really kind of find that way to take up our space. I find that hard to do. And I'm 44 as well. And it seems silly to me that I'm 44 years old and I still have to figure out how to take up my space, but I really do, you know?
I I think a lot of that is societal too, like, and especially for women, most of us, I find, we were raised to put other people first and to make sure everybody else is okay before we make sure that we're okay. So that can take a lot of sort of unpicking, because there's a lot of bad habits that ultimately lead to harm if you just keep going like that indefinitely. Like, oh, well, are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? And then there's no you left to be okay or not okay. So yeah, it takes work for sure.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. And would you say that, not to jump back into that previous experience, but would you say that that whole experience with your grandmother was pivotal in you getting to that place, or realizing that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, I think it I think that I was getting plenty of signs that it wasn't a sustainable situation, but I was just so determined to make it work that I was, like slaloming around every red flag that was popping up. I'm like, no, 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 this is okay. I can do this. I can do this. And it wasn't until I broke my foot when I was living at my grandma's house. And then suddenly I was incapacitated. I couldn't look after her in the same way. I couldn't look after myself in the same way. And Dave had to look after all three of us, me and my grandma and my kid, and do all the cooking and the cleaning and the everything. And he burnt out first and was able to say something about it and say, I can't do this anymore. And it took him saying it to me for me to realize, like, oh, thank you, because that's exactly how I've been feeling. I just haven't been able to be honest about it at that point. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I'm sorry for that experience. Sorry that it took that to sort of take you to that place, but I still am so uh I cherish that you went on that adventure as a family. I cherish that you tried. I cherish that you did as best you could for as long as you could, and then found it within yourselves to take care of yourselves, because that's not always easy to do, as we just said. And so I think, not only do I think that's really beautiful, I also cherish that you write about it in your comics. I also cherish how real those are and how profound they are to read, because, like I said, this is something that we're not talking about enough. And I think for those who have experienced that, it's going to reach them on a profound level. And because it's not, it's memoir like, but because it's a comic, it just hits you in a different way, I find. And so you don't have to, I'm considering writing about my experiences, but every time I start, I think, oh, this just sounds like I'm feeling sorry for myself. And that's not the point. The point is to capture all of it. And it's in its beauty and its misery, in its light and in its dark, and in all those things. And I find that you do that so well. I just love it. And I really appreciate them. And remind us what the name of your new Instagram is if people want to check out those comics.
Thank you. My new Instagram is endrené.art. So that is ENDRENE period ART.
I just realized the time, and I know that you have another commitment coming on soon. So before I let you go, I'm wondering, so first of all, I've now fallen in love with that painting behind you, and I am curious if it's for sale.
Oh, this one is not, but I do have prints
Do you have
available.
that
Yeah.
one? Okay,
On my website, you should be able to find prints of this one. It's called Finnerty View from Finnerty Road.
Oh, it's so beautiful. And can you give us a view? Yeah, look at that. Unbelievable. And it's funny because you could, just the way it was framed, it looks like it could be about that big, but then
Yes.
because I knew it was, it's so beautiful, Endrené. So beautiful.
Thank you.
So we talked about your Instagram channel. Your website is just endreneshepard.com?
Endrené.com. Yep.
Endrené.com.
Yep. Yeah.
Any new projects that we should know about? Any gallery showings? Any new murals coming up?
No, right now I am just sort of figuring out what's next. Like I said, I came back from a comics residency. So my plans right now have to do with compiling all the grandma comics and hopefully producing a zine or getting them published. But that's the main thing on my plate right now. Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I look forward to checking that out when it comes out. And will that be updated on your website? Will we know where to find you on your website through that?
Yes, absolutely. Website, and then also Instagram and Facebook. That's where I try and keep those up to date.
Perfect. That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I am such a fan. Such a huge fan. I really, really love your work, and really look forward to reading the zine when it comes out, because like I said, they are raw, they are real, and they just speak straight to my heart, and I know other people will appreciate them too. So yeah.
Thank you so much for inviting me to come and talk to you, and it was such a pleasure, and so I'm so excited for everything that you're doing next too. So congratulations, and keep up the good work.
Thank you, Endrené. Lovely to talk to you today. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. If you'd like to check out more of her work, you can find Endrené online at endrené.com, her website, or on Instagram at endrené.art. See you next time.